All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the Legends Library. It is me, Cade, and today I am joined with Keith again.
Hello, hey, hi.
And we are coming at you today with probably, in today's time and age, a fairly controversial take in that the Jedi aren't actually, they're not evil, they're not meant to be portrayed as evil, and basically just the top 10 reasons why people say they are, and we're basically just going through reason by reason, and we're going to be debunking some myths. So stick with us as we do that.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
Fear is the path to the dark side. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. I'm a Jedi, like my father before me.
And starting off right here is that they are a cult. And I think you had mentioned this previously when we were talking, but it's definitely that people, when they say this, are using cult with a negative connotation.
Right, yeah, they definitely very much mean the negative, word for cult. Because I guess that's the only connotation for cult. It's very much a negative word to use.
Yeah, it definitely in the past, I would say like I don't know, probably like century, I would say has basically been only used in a very negative connotation when, like, if you Google, so for example, I Googled cult, and the first definition that pops up is a system of religious veneration and devotion directed towards a particular figure or object. So, yeah, like, by definition, it isn't especially bad, and I guess people just direct it to mean that they're bad. And usually when people say this, it's because they, air quotes, indoctrinate children, or, they don't allow any other, like, views to exist or anything when, really, obviously there are some smaller Force organizations that, like, the Jedi don't really care about, or, like, they know they exist. But, yeah, when it comes to opposing the dark side, it's not like the Jedi are really, like, a cult for doing so, because by the same definition, the Sith would also be a cult.
Oh yeah, for sure. One man's religion is another man's cult.
And that's a very good point, because, like, in the early days of Christianity, the Romans considered it a cult. Like, it was a cult. So, like, by definition, calling it a cult and only using the negative connotation of it, I think is kind of just a way for people to kind of push that agenda. You see a lot of that online now where people say the Jedi are a cult, the Jedi are evil, and all that stuff. And I think it's just a really poor argument to say they're a cult, because by definition, a ton of things can be cults. Like, like sports fans, like, they can be considered like a cult. So
Yeah, any sort of fandom, right?
yeah,
But I think it's interesting that even in like A New Hope, the Jedi, when they're like completely pretty much extinct at this point, they're like faded. Even these people that like probably look down on the Jedi just only refer to them as a religion. You're all that's left of their religion, Tarkin says. Han Solo calls it a hokey religion. Doesn't call it a cult, calls it a religion.
yeah. Well, and even to reference Last Jedi, which neither of us are a huge fan of, even Luke, he calls it a religion.
Oh, I must
I'm,
have
I'm
missed
pretty
that
sure.
part while I was.
I'm pretty sure he does. But no, he also doesn't call it a cult. And at that point in time, Luke Skywalker is like the biggest anti-Jedi person in the galaxy. So,
Very true.
the fact that he does not call it a cult is also telling, because, spoiler alert, the Jedi are the good guys, and you can't really change that, especially considering that's how the story is written.
Yeah, I think people just like to, say these things. The Jedi, the Jedi are a cult that kidnaps kids and blah blah blah, and they're hypocrites and all the corrupt this and that. But it's not really true in the movies. Like it's just stuff people project onto them.
Yeah, and I think definitely, well, since you brought up kids, that's a perfect segue into the second point, which is that they kidnap kids. I can't think of any story where, people are angry, like the children being taken are like angry that they're going to become Jedi. Like, yeah, like you have instances like Anakin where like he's sad he has to leave his mother behind, but like he's not like angry. Like Shmi isn't like freaking out. Like she's like relieved that her son's not going to have to grow up a slave.
Yeah, being in the Jedi is like a super high honor, like a jillion times bigger than being like a celebrity or anything.
Yeah, like even like if Jedi go around the galaxy, like they're by random people, they're called Master Jedi. Like it's kind of ridiculous to think that like kids wouldn't also want to like have that fantasy like Anakin does when he's on Tatooine. He's like, I want to be a Jedi. So
Right.
so like this whole idea
these kinds of things are like something that like an ignorant person in the Star Wars universe would say about the Jedi,
Well, and I think
oh,
that's
the
the
Jedi, they're just a cult that kidnaps children and they're like sneak around in their robes and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's funny you mention that because like the Jedi path brings up that people will say the Jedi are kidnapping kids. Like they will say that. Like it's a passage in the Jedi path, like the little book. And they're warning Jedi who are out, and they say, oh, if you find a force sensitive kid and you conscript them into the order, people are going to say you're kidnapping them. But it's not kidnapping. Like it's mostly seen as an honor, and I can't really think of any instance. I know you've had a couple comments on some like just various online things as you've been going around that like there are like people that just like hate the Jedi for kidnapping kids, and like, yeah, that's in universe because the people are like ignorant of the Jedi.
Yeah, and think about this. When when the Jedi take a kid who is force sensitive, they're very much helping them to learn and control their force power and learn how to use it for good, not evil. Learn how to use it for good and to not let themselves be controlled by their emotions, because when you're strong in the force, it can be very easy for something like that to happen. And the alternative to the Jedi taking the kid into the order would be them just growing up without any kind of training or anything like that, and they could eventually become a dark side force user.
Well, yeah, like especially if you bring that up, like you could end up where the child grows up to be like a Set Hearth from like Dynasty of Evil character, where he's just like a douche.
Right, somebody who very much abuses their force powers.
Yeah, or what's the from Rule of Two? Zana brings him to Bane's camp and he dies. Do you remember his name? The old guy.
I want to say he was like the heir of House Harkonnen or something like that. He was some kind of heir of something. I just imagine him looking like Dooku because he's like he's like a Sereno
noble,
noble or whatever. But he's like Dooku. He's like off-brand Dooku.
I mean,
but
basically.
now I can't remember his name.
Yeah, but like then you end up with guys like him who are, they're willing to like use their powers and don't care if they're like evil. So I don't know. Like I don't see how you could see the Jedi taking as your kid as any kind of negative. And if anything, especially in a case like Anakin, like you're getting him out of slavery. And you're going to bring him, he's going to get like 3 meals a day. Like he's going to get to train and learn to use his powers responsibly. And again, maybe this could be a little bit of projection on those people's part because they're like, well, if I was in Star Wars, I would want to use my powers to become a super successful person and use Force lightning on the person who called me stupid in 2nd grade. So
yeah.
I definitely think you could definitely see how there could be some projection there, and and all that, which obviously isn't true.
Yeah, because like if you look at the the Jedi raising force sensitive kids to be good honorable Jedi as a bad thing, maybe just re-examine your priorities there.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I think that's probably a good time to switch over to point 3, that they are hypocritical, and people usually bring this up to critique the Jedi when it comes to wars. Like, you'll have them, I've seen people say it about the Mandalorian, how, oh, the Jedi are supposed to be peacekeepers, but they didn't fight in the Mandalorian War. And then you have the tail side of that, where the same people will say, oh, the Jedi are hypocrites for fighting in the Clone Wars. So you kind of have that duality there, where, some people want the Jedi to fight sometimes, but then those same people don't like when they fight other times.
Right, it's only good for Jedi to fight in certain situations.
Yeah, or, in general, like, you see a lot of people trying to bring this up as, like, some kind of paradox. Like, oh, how can you be a peacekeeper if you fight in a war? If Jedi peacekeeper, why they fight war?
If Jedi keep peace, then why carry weapon?
Yeah, exactly. Like,
why carry one of the most deadly weapons in the entire galaxy? Oh, gee, I don't know.
Yeah, it's it's one of those goofy things where, and they'll try and take quotes from the movie, like where Mace says, "Oh, we're not an army, we're keepers of the peace," and at the same time, we have situations where the Jedi were straight up an army. If you go back and watch our review on the Jedi vs. Sith comic, the Jedi were straight up a military fighting force with their own ships, their own navies, their own armies. They had the army of light. Like, the Jedi have historically been warriors, as well as, by the time, like, after the Rusan Reformation, and they do end up getting kind of pushed more into the peacekeeper role, but that's not saying that they can't, like, lead troops into battle. Like,
yeah, the Jedi evolve based on the needs of the times. Depending on how things are going in the galaxy, they could be an army, or they could be turned into basically space meter maids.
Yeah. Well, and if people want to get into the whole, the Jedi are supposed to be pacifists, I don't think the Jedi were ever meant to be pacifists, considering the term for them is Jedi Knight. I don't think medieval knights were really the pacifist type.
Right, they prepare themselves to defend themselves. Part of defending is also attacking.
Yeah, well, unless you use Sarisu, then part of defending is defending.
Yeah,
and only defending,
of course.
But no, like, it's a very goofy argument, and a lot of people who use it end up being kind of hypocritical themselves in when they'll say the Jedi were supposed to fight this war, but shouldn't fight this war. And well, even Obi-Wan in Episode 4 in A New Hope, he says the Jedi have been guardians of peace in the galaxy for 1,000 generations. Yeah. So it's not like those 1,000 years wouldn't include fighting in wars.
Right.
And I mean, obviously, between, the last Battle of Rusan and the Clone Wars, obviously there weren't any, like, huge galactic wars, but, like, the Jedi were called upon to, like, fight if they had to. And obviously
there were various conflicts, throughout that time, like the Stark Hyperspace War, the Mandalorian Civil War.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not like being a peacekeeper means you're a pacifist. So that's kind of a goofy little argument, which brings us into even a worse argument in number 4, that they mistreated Anakin, and this is like a huge one. It could have been like separate points by itself, but we decided to condense it. It's they mistreated Anakin, / asked him to spy on Palpatine, / lied to him about Obi-Wan faking his death, / didn't free his mom.
Right, and the Obi-Wan faking his death part is just specifically from Clone Wars, the TV show.
Yeah, like, it's something that, you saw, I think, in 3 separate, like, comments you had said, and you have the screenshots of them, and it's like, yeah, that they were faking Obi-Wan's death. It's like, the only people who didn't know he died were council masters.
Right, and they had good reason for not telling Anakin. It was to protect Obi-Wan while he's undercover.
Yeah, because Anakin's a dumbass.
Another one of the instances where strategy gets confused for like malice or corruption,
Yeah, it's like if Anakin
like the
was
strategy of asking Anakin, who's super close to the Chancellor, to spy on Palpatine. That's strategy. It's not, shitty manipulation, right? It's not them being corrupt. It's them being tactical.
yeah, it's also them having suspicions about Palpatine because like they want to know like what his moves are because he has so much power in the Republic.
Right, and then of course they're completely right about Palpatine, but everyone kind of forgets that.
Yeah, exactly. They end up being right that Palpatine is Space Hitler.
And everyone's like, but they didn't really know, so
Yeah, but then
hypocrite.
then like a day later they find out that they were 100% right.
Yeah, Palpatine does the 180-degree spin. It's like, oh yeah, he's the guy.
Yeah, exactly. And as far as like not freeing Shmi, like they weren't in a position to. Like Qui-Gon tries. Like he tries to free Anakin's mother.
Right.
Like he tries to get Watto to be like, "Oh, I want the boy and his mother." And Watto just straight up says no. Like he's working Qui-Gon was working within the system and he had to do it because it's not like he can just kill Watto and free them. It's not like they can just, start a war with the Hutts over one person. Like that would be irresponsible to the galaxy.
Yeah, and then the next person who buys her ends up freeing her anyway, so
Yeah, exactly, which is
There you go.
I mean, kind of creepy that, this dude basically bought a slave and is like, I'll marry her.
no, but he's nice because he frees her. He doesn't keep her as a slave.
Yeah, I know. It always just like rubbed me. I don't know. That's like a
He could have
sidetrack.
kept
But like,
her as a slave with like the freaking implant they have in their brain that makes their head explode if they
yeah, I don't
try
know.
and escape.
I always just thought it was like a weird thing. I don't know. That's just me. But no. Let's see. And apparently they mistreated Anakin, which I have seen people say like, oh, they. Well, then you can get into stuff like we talked about with the Star Wars Theory video, where they wouldn't make him a master. It's like, yeah, because Anakin's a dumbass. Like Anakin didn't deserve to be a master. Like, yeah, he was a great warrior and a great pilot, but he had the emotional stability of a teenager.
Yeah.
As an adult.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a little ridiculous when they say they mistreated him. Like, obviously, Anakin thinks they mistreat him and Anakin thinks that they're holding him back, but in reality, he's getting the same treatment as everyone else.
Right. Maybe people are, seeing things a little too well from Anakin's point of view.
I mean, he is the like protagonist of the prequels, so like I guess people are like trying to identify with him, but like every time you hear a Jedi say that they're holding him back or whatever, guess what? The Jedi Order almost always ends up being right. Like,
yeah, like so. The thing is, like here, like Anakin turns evil, and then everybody wants to act like it's the Jedi's fault he turned evil. When there's all these signs beforehand that he's, he's got this dark side and everything, blah blah. When he finally goes evil, it's like, oh, it's the Jedi.
Yeah, and people love to blame the Jedi for Anakin's fall in this weird like universe they've built where the Jedi constantly put him down and Mace Windu was mean to him, so he fell to the dark side. And people love to take that quote out of context too, where he said, "Take a seat." It's like he's not saying that to be like a dick. He's saying that because Anakin's acting like an entitled 10-year-old.
Yeah, like he's basically saying, "Take a seat before you embarrass yourself even more."
Yeah, exactly. Like people love to see all these like slights and insults where there are none. Like if fucking I don't know, if Ki-Adi-Mundi stood up in the council chamber and started throwing a hissy fit, like Mace Windu would probably tell him, take a seat. Like it's again, like you hit the nail right on the head. Like he's telling him that because he's making he's throwing a seat. It's like the kid who throws a tantrum at Walmart because his parents won't buy him a toy. that's basically what that scene is. And then, Mace Windu is the dad who says, "No, we're not giving you what you want just because you yell at us."
Yeah, and if Mace had the option in that moment, he would just not make Anakin, just not have Anakin have a seat on the council. But his hands are tied, so he's just like, Anakin, just sit down.
Yeah.
Just sit down. There's nothing I can do about this because I need you, so sit.
Yeah, and I don't know. And then, I guess we'll get to some other stuff later. So going on to the next one here is number 5. They genocided the Sith after the Great Hyperspace War. This comes through because after the Great Hyperspace War, the Republic basically did a counter invasion to the Sith Empire, and they, attacked all these Sith worlds, and the Republic military, they killed, all the Sith they could find, but the Jedi didn't kill anyone who didn't attack them, and all they did was, confiscate, Sith, texts and stuff, obviously for them to study, and so that they couldn't fall into, not good hands.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this one, you do see a lot, and I've even, on YouTube, I've seen videos about how, this is why, they hate the Jedi because they tried to genocide the Sith. It's like, no.
I haven't heard that anywhere. Most of the anti-Jedi comments I've seen seem to come from Clone Wars fans. That's a little surprising to me, seeing that come from someone, anybody who's read Legends, would have obviously have read more and just seen the different ways the Jedi, evolve militarily, over time.
Yeah. Well, and granted, if you Google something specifically like this, you're going to come up with videos that obviously are I guess not correctly written. But if you go on YouTube and type in Sith genocide, the first 2 videos that come up are people saying that, well, the first one is the most evil thing the Jedi did, the Sith Holocaust. And then the next one is the one moment that caused the Sith to hate the Jedi forever. It's like, no, the Sith are going to hate the Jedi forever no matter what. They're literally just 2, ideologies that can't coexist.
Yeah, the whole reason that the Sith became a thing is because the Dark Jedi split off from the regular Jedi and then found the Sith, and the Sith race being the default name for Dark Jedi wouldn't be a thing unless Jedi left the Jedi Order.
Yeah, exactly. This one, I think, is just, it comes from people, I would say it comes from people who watch these YouTube videos and read Wikipedia, but glance over the parts where it says that the Jedi didn't partake in any of the fighting unless they were attacked. And I think it's kind of just a selective thing that they choose to believe, instead of, the evidence looks them in the eye that the Jedi, didn't partake in that, and that it was the Republic. And yeah, the Republic probably shouldn't have, killed every single Sith that they found, but to say the Jedi are at fault for this is a bit disingenuous.
Yeah, definitely more of a defense kind of thing.
Yeah, and speaking of defense, the Sith were the ones who attacked the Republic in the Great Hyperspace War for literally no reason other than they existed, and the Sith wanted to conquer more worlds.
And they had no idea what they were up against.
Yeah, exactly. And then, they lose, retreat to their sector of the galaxy, and the Republic comes in, and they do a counter invasion. And yeah, they probably shouldn't have killed every single Sith they came across, but, shit happens. And is it really that...
Sith happens, actually.
Yeah, Sith happens, yeah. And to be fair, if the Sith were completely wiped out and had never come back, would the galaxy have been any worse? Without the Sith re-emerging, every 1,000 years?
Yeah.
No,
I mean, probably about the same. I mean,
well, probably not, because you wouldn't have had The events of KOTOR happen.
I guess the events of Tales of the Jedi lead to the second Sith War with Exar Kun and all that. So I guess that's kind of.
Yeah, so they lead to that. Like, the Great Sith War wouldn't have happened in Tales of the Jedi. Freedon Nad wouldn't have been a thing. You know, all that stuff wouldn't have happened. Well, Star Wars wouldn't have happened. Basically.
Yeah, I guess so.
So, would it really have been that bad? So, and speaking of the Republic, people love to say in point number 6 that the Jedi tried to take over the Republic and return the Sith.
Revenge of the Sith.
Or Revenge of the Sith, sorry.
Return of the Sith.
Return of the Sith.
Newest Star Wars movie.
Yeah, no, but people do say that the Jedi did try to take over the Republic, so.
Right, specifically when referring to Mace getting a team of Jedi together to arrest Palpatine because he's a evil Sith Lord who created a proxy war by controlling both sides of the engagement. Am I missing anything there?
No, that's basically it. That is the only reason. The only reason they even tried to arrest Palpatine is because Anakin tattled on him. Like, if Anakin,
right.
if Palpatine wouldn't have told Anakin, then none of that would have happened. Like, the only reason they tried to arrest Palpatine, which they tried to do first, I think we've mentioned that in other videos. They tried to arrest him first, but then he does the barrel roll at them, kills.
Yeah, this is a big line in the movie. He's like, "In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you are under arrest."
Yeah, exactly. Like, they try to arrest him first. Like, their first, even against this Sith Lord, their first course of action was to try and peacefully arrest him.
Yeah, and you know, they ignite their lightsabers in that moment, but that's kind of like a, you know.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like they're doing it because they know he's a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, that's like
they're not idiots. They're not going to come in there with like their hands, like, you know, like in prayer, just like, please come with us. We're arresting you, please.
Well, it's like the equivalent of, like, if I'm a known, like, serial killer and the cops figure out where I am, they're not going to come in, like, with their guns, like, down. Like, it's like the same, like, a real life equivalent. Like, you know, I'm sure when the cops found Ted Bundy, I'm sure they didn't just, like, you know, walk in without their guns drawn. Like, they're going to confront a dangerous individual who has been manipulating both sides of a galactic war that's killed, you know, billions of people. And yeah, they go in with their lightsabers drawn, but that's like the most aggressive they are till Palpatine attacks them first and kills 3 Jedi. So I could hardly, and you know, even when they're talking about, like, having to, they talk about it in the novel for sure, and they probably do in the movie too, that they might have to temporarily take over the Republic.
Yeah, that was the whole idea, is they arrest Palpatine, like, temporarily, you know, have the Jedi Council set up as like being in charge, kind of, or something, because they still have to, like, direct the war effort, and then they would hand things off to the Senate.
Yeah, and then the Senate would have just democratically elected a new chancellor.
And the good Star Wars timeline. Yeah,
that's like the best case scenario. It's like, what are they going to do?
Or like probably like Organa was probably like made chancellor, or what?
Oh no, I was just going to say, like, you know, what are they going to do? Find out Palpatine's the Sith Lord and then just wait for his term to be done?
All right, and then with his emergency powers, didn't he get to, like, stay in term, like, way longer than he should have anyway?
Yeah, like, by the time of Revenge of the Sith, he was supposed to be out of office.
Yeah, and the emergency powers were keeping him in office.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah. So the only way his term would have ended is if the war ended. But then, of course, you know, he did the ultimate move.
Yeah, the barrel roll. And then, even then, people will, you know, kind of in the same vein of them trying to take over the Republic, Like, people will say that Mace is wrong to want to kill Palpatine. Like, how is Mace in the wrong at all? Like, he's a known Sith Lord. The dude shoots lightning out of his hands.
Yeah.
Like he says it. Like Mace says it. Like, he has control of the Senate and the courts. Like, he can't. He can't. He's too dangerous to be left alive. Like, they say it in the movie.
We shouldn't have to say this because it's so obvious if you just watch the movie.
Well, I think it's because since Anakin is the protagonist, people are identifying with him, and apparently Palpatine's manipulations are so good they can go through the fourth wall and manipulate the audience watching it too.
I guess so.
But yeah, like, Mace was 100% right to try and kill Palpatine. Anakin's a dumbass and prevents the good timeline from happening. And, I mean, yeah, do you have anything to add to that point? Because I think we nailed that one probably the best out of any that we have.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to debunk,
Yeah.
I have nothing.
Yeah, so then I suppose we can just go on to
Onward.
Yeah, onward and upward. Point 7. They suppress emotions / are emotionless robots. And I think what a lot of this comes from is people think that Jedi aren't allowed to be angry or be afraid of stuff or any of that, and people think that they kind of take the line from the Jedi Code, there is no emotion, to literally mean, Jedi are supposed to be like emotionless robots.
Right. The Jedi, they need to keep their emotions in check, because if they don't, it'll like feed into the dark side and create this like feedback loop of like making them evil and stuff,
Yeah, and again, if you just directly read the Jedi Code, there is no emotion, there is peace. It's like, yeah, it sounds like there shouldn't be, that they're not allowed to have emotions. But like, if you read into it, like, what they mean is that they're not supposed to let emotion like cloud their judgment.
Right.
Like,
when you're at peace, everything is clear, emotions calm down and stuff.
Yeah, and like the perfect example of this is Anakin. Like, when he gets his bad dreams in 3, he lets that cloud like his rational judgment, and he lets his like fear take over.
You know what I really like as an example of this is that scene in Darth Bane Rule of 2 where Johan is like fighting the Red Lethan Twi'lek.
Yep.
And he basically has like no moves left in him, and they're like standing on this like precipice over like a waterfall or whatever. And like he's fighting this guy.
Yeah, it's like
or it's like a bridge.
No, it's like a landing pad that's like right next to the ocean.
Yeah. And his last course of action is basically to just like grab this dude by the shirt and like basically just like pull him off the ledge and like just like basically just kill them both. And like the dude is like slashing at his arms or whatever, and he just like totally just goes into peace in the Force, and is like, he can't even feel the pain as he's like dragging this dude, and as they're both falling into the water, this dude looks terrified, and he's like completely at peace in this moment, knowing he did what he had to do and all this stuff. But he's about to die, but like, yeah, he still feels all those things, but he's like able to use the Force to calm himself and just not be that. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that's like the perfect, I guess, in a way, like that's the perfect like antithesis to like Anakin, where Anakin, when he's afraid, like he lashes out, like he tries to do all these things to save Padme, where if he had not let his emotions take hold, like Padme would have lived. And the only reason that she dies is, it's not because the Jedi, don't let them be married. It's because Anakin's fear feeds, like, clouds his judgment, and then he does all this stupid stuff. Like, if he would have been like, oh, that was just a dream. Like, you know, that doesn't mean it's going to be true. Like,
Yeah, and you could add all this stuff like Palpatine's manipulating him and all that, but yeah, at the end of the day, when it came right down to it, it was his own fears and anger that led to Padme's death, right? Obi-Wan shows up on the ship. He sees him like, you led him here to kill me. He's, completely irrational and,
yeah,
at
people,
this moment, and he kills her.
yeah, people love to give Anakin a break, but he fucking force chokes his wife. It's like,
No, bro, that's the Jedi manipulating him. He's not really doing that.
Yeah, he didn't mean to choke her. Not like he knowingly pulled up his hand and knowingly used the force to force choke her.
It's all because the Jedi's evil and hypocritical force peace training.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's kind of one of those things where, like, I don't know if you read comics at all, Keith, but like Hank Pym like hit his wife in Marvel comic like 40 years ago, and people still talk about it.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
Oh, but yeah, no, and people give Anakin a break for fucking choking his wife.
Right? They just completely skip over that part of his turn to the dark side.
Yeah, where he literally
he does some questionable shit. Like right before he kills her, he's like planning on taking over the galaxy by himself and everything.
Yeah, and then Obi-Wan shows up. And then he goes fucking Donkey Kong on Padme and force chokes her.
Yeah,
but it's the Jedi who were evil guys. Anakin was the good guy all along.
Yeah, and I guess this, from taking the whole, like the people who believe and say that the Jedi are, evil and hypocritical. They say this because they identify with Anakin and they see things from his point of view. And then when he's fighting Obi-Wan, he's like, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. And when you watch that, it's supposed to be like, oh, whoa, Anakin's worldview has like warped so much that, he sees the Jedi as evil. But everyone's like, oh, no, he's right. He's totally right. The Jedi are evil. Yeah.
Yeah, it's that and that's a really good point to bring up too, is like Anakin literally says, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil. That's like me saying, from my point of view, the New York Yankees are evil. Well, I mean, okay, that's not fair because, the Yankees are evil, but, the point still stands. If someone prefaces their statement with, from my point of view, maybe take it with a grain of salt instead of a admission of fact. Whereas Obi-Wan very clearly states a fact. Chancellor Palpatine is evil.
Yeah, because Anakin can't even rebuke it. He's like, well, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
Yeah, it's like when someone like it's like when someone like in like elementary school has like a really good burn on you, and all you can say is, "Oh well, shut up."
I know you are, but what am I?
That exactly, yeah. But no, like that's just it's a ridiculous thing that the Jedi are supposed to be like emotionless robots, and all that really means is that they're supposed to like, not let their emotions cloud their judgment, because otherwise you end up like Anakin.
Yeah. When the Jedi tried to kill Emperor Palpatine and take over the Republic, they were trying to take over the Republic, and then like 5 seconds later they don't kill Palpatine, declares the Republican Empire and takes over everything. The Jedi were in the wrong.
Yeah, it's just bad take. That's just one of the worst takes. So I think we should probably get off that before it turns into a 5-hour video on how the Jedi aren't actually dumb for not letting emotions cloud their judgment. So, and on to that though, we do get onto an equally bad take, and all of these are bad takes. Don't get us wrong, but that one is probably like one of the worst. And we have number 8, where the Jedi are as bad as Palpatine for joining the Clone Wars. Like, it's not like it was their choice. Like,
yeah.
Like, they were pressed into it to be generals. Like, and it's not like they could just avoid it. Like, again, like, you get back into that whole argument of, like, oh, the Jedi are peacekeepers, not soldiers. It's like, yeah, well, they're keeping the peace by not letting, the CIS, who are led by a Sith Lord Dooku, like, just go about their own business. So are they really the bad guys for fighting the bad guys?
Yeah, and I guess you could go over the minutia, like the whole for one thing, the just as a I guess a caveat here, the plot of Attack of the Clones is nonsensical. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of dumb, but that is what we are stuck with as canon. As, the whole reason and that's the way the Jedi entered the war, right? And if I even try and explain the events of the movie and how they happened, my head will explode. But basically, the Chancellor, gets granted emergency powers. They find out, oh, we have this whole army that's just sitting here, and at the time, the Jedi are still guardians of the Republic, and they're asked to be generals. So of course, why would they refuse to help in this great time of need, right? Like the whole Senate thinks that an army is needed, that badly that they all voted to give Palpatine emergency powers for the army.
Yeah.
So why would they go against the will of the people, as it were?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like they're not joining the Clone Wars for any huge, oh, we're doing this for glorious battle. We want to, just break down droids for fun.
Yeah, they're not like chomping at the bit to kill Sith Lords or anything. This is like a major conflict that they're getting involved in here.
Yeah, it's again, this is a very nonsensical point. And like you said, the Jedi aren't chomping at the bit to do this. Like, they're doing it because it has to be done. Like, it's like a necessary evil that they have to fight in the war.
Yeah, look at Mace Windu in Attack of the Clones at the end when he's like commanding clone troopers and stuff. Look at how bored his face looks. Does he look like he's like fervently like wanting to like just destroy the separatists and stuff? Like, no, like.
Well, to be fair, I think he's probably bored because he's acting in Attack of the Clones, so he's probably just standing in front of a green screen.
A giant green room. That's all he has. He's like,
so,
oh, there's some green over there and over there.
Yeah, so I don't think Sam Jackson had and plus it probably doesn't help.
No. I'm reading into the actor's emotions and portrayal of the situation, and it means exactly what I think it means because I say so and I thought it.
Yeah, that is how these anti-Jedi people, like, that is how they work. Like, I read the lines that are in between the lines that aren't there.
Right.
So I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I realize the bored look on Samuel Jackson's face in Attack of the Clones is not a good defense of why the Jedi aren't like freaking warmongers.
Well, and that's a good point. Like, the Jedi aren't warmongers. Like, it's throughout the war they're thinking of ways to like end it. Like, they don't.
Yeah, they're always trying to end it as soon as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, they want the war done as soon as Grievous is killed. Like, what's the first thing they do? They're like, we need to make sure the Chancellor gives up his emergency powers that's making him way too powerful.
Yep.
Like, if the Jedi were, like, the warmongers that people say they are, they would have been like, oh, General Grievous is dead? All right, let's go to Mustafar and kill all the rest of the Separatists.
Right, all of these things have answers, in the canon, in the stories.
Yeah, it's, I don't know. It's one of those things where people, again, they like to see things that isn't there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then speaking of Clone Wars, we have point number 9, where the Jedi basically just use clones as slaves. Which, again, I guess is... Well, to be fair, the clones are meant to be, like, kind of a parallel to the battle droids. They're like, described... I think in the Plagueis novel, in A Vision of the Future that a Force Sensitive has, they're described as like machines of flesh or something akin to that. And
Right.
yeah, there is supposed to be a bit of a parallel, but it's not like the clones like were like used as slaves. Like they were, I guess, I mean, if you want to get into the minutia of it, like I'm sure you could probably come up with a way to say that they were, but they were.
I mean, okay, it's like correct from like, you know, like it's correct, I guess, kind of.
It's correct from an out of
technically.
universe point of view,
Right.
but like in universe, they're using them as like soldiers and fighter pilots and stuff. Like, so I guess then you can. I mean, I guess from there, like I said, like you can get into the minutia. Like, oh, are soldiers technically slaves because they don't really have a say in what they do and stuff? Like, I mean, I guess the clones don't really have a say, but at the same time, like they're fighting a war, so you know, I'm not really sure. You know,
Yeah, it is what they've been programmed to do from like birth and everything, and what they've been made to do, and they, you know, they love it. It's like what they've been made to do. Like it's their purpose. The clones themselves wouldn't want to do anything else, but you know, like yeah, there is that moral gray area of there, but that doesn't mean i.e. the Jedi are evil. You know,
yeah, and especially at the same time, like if the Jedi had any other choice, they probably would not have used the clone army. Like if there was an army of organic, like volunteer soldiers, similar size to the Grand Army of the Republic, like the Jedi probably would have chosen volunteers over, you know, the clones. Like they used the clone army because that was their only option to be able to even compete with the Separatists.
right.
So like,
Yeah.
again, like the Jedi can't really be put at fault for using the only resource they had.
Right, they've been pressed into, extenuating circumstances. This is an extreme situation. A lot on the line here. They don't really have, time to create a whole new army just because it's kind of, it's a little sketchy.
Yeah, it's
And even then, the Jedi do their best, to treat the clones as living. They talk about it a lot in the comics. The Jedi often voice their own misgivings about using the clones as soldiers, but then it always comes back to they don't really have a choice because they're in the middle of this huge war against a virtually infinite army of droids.
yeah, and again, it's like they're making the best of a bad situation.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And yeah, it's probably not the ultimately best, choice. Well, no, it is the best choice because they don't have another option other than to use the clones from Kamino.
Right, like yeah, the Republic is already facing, impossible odds, and the clones do help out a lot because they're really good soldiers, but having the Jedi be their generals helps it out so much more, and it's probably the only reason that the Republic is able to, put up any kind of a defense against the Separatist invasion.
Yeah, exactly. So again, that's point number 9, and on to the final point is it's one that you'd brought up that you said you had seen commented, and that it's that the Jedi forgot they were Jedi and embraced being knights. Again,
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what that's supposed to mean. It just,
well, I
it just
think
seems like
I
they
think
wrote it down as being like clever,
I think what they meant is that like the Jedi focused more on being warriors than they were, like the monks that they're supposed to be.
Right. Now, how can we examine that statement and prove it to be irrefutably false?
Irrefutably false.
Irrefutably false. I was trying not to get caught up in the double negatives there, but
Yeah.
Let's see. What if we just examine the entire history of the Jedi Order and what their relationship has been with weapons? Oh, let's see here. Oh, the Jedi have always trained using weapons, both in defensive and offensive maneuvers. That's weird.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of ridiculous points again that like it's kind of back to the Jedi are hypocritical point where they've always where that, again, like, where that was false, like, the Jedi have always had, like, that duality. They're Jedi Knights.
Yeah, like you go back to 4,000 years before the prequels, and the Jedi are knights, but they're at that point in time they're refusing to get involved in a war against the Mandalorians. In kind of similar circumstances to the prequels, but not really. The prequels is more of like a, I guess, like a separation of the Republic, system splitting off and stuff like that, and then the the Mandalorian War was more of like an invasion, from like outside forces, kind of just on the fringe at first.
Yeah, and again, like, people get on the Jedi for not being militant in that war, like when they were just trying to assess the situation. Because then what happens when a bunch of these Jedi Knights and Padawans leave for the Mandalorian War? Oh, they all come back as Dark Jedi later? Oh, no. Like, maybe that's why the Jedi Council didn't want to join the war. It's like they were trying... Like, obviously they couldn't foresee that happening, but, like, they were trying to evaluate it. And, like, yeah, you can make the argument at the time, like, yeah, if Revan and those Jedi that followed him didn't join the war, yeah, the Republic probably wouldn't have won. So maybe the ends justify the means there for the Mandalorian War.
Again, that's another great little point you made there, because it leaves a moral gray area. Like, sure, the Jedi that went off to war became evil, but they did defeat the Mandalorians. They did technically save the galaxy, even though they tried to take it over by themselves and all that, right? But they're like I said, there's a little moral gray area there. There's not an exact right answer for it, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where George Lucas never once, when he was designing the Jedi or coming up with them, he never meant for them to be like pacifists. Like, he called them Jedi Knights. Like, they're based off of like samurai, like, mixed together with like medieval knights. Like, Obi-Wan isn't like a pacifist or anything in A New Hope. He cut the dude's hand off.
Right, in self-defense, of course.
Yeah, in self-defense, of course, but like at the same time, like, he fights Vader in self-defense. Like, it's not like... And, then people bring up stuff from, like, Empire, where, Yoda says, use for defense, never attack. It's like... Yeah, it's like...
Even though Yoda and Obi-Wan wanted Luke to kill Vader, apparently?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, yeah, and by no means, like, during this, like, are we saying the Jedi are perfect? It's just, we're saying the Jedi aren't actually evil. The Jedi they're flawed.
Yeah, you could look at Obi-Wan lying to Luke and say, oh, Obi-Wan's evil, he lied to Luke or whatever. Or he could just kind of, look at it from a certain point of view. He was trying to do what he thought was right in that situation.
Yeah, and, telling a 19-year-old that his father is, basically, Space Hitler *2, maybe that wouldn't have been good for a 19-year-old to all of a sudden be like, oh, by the way, Luke, your father killed he killed a room full of younglings. I saw it on the security recordings.
Right, yeah, you see that meme a lot, Here's your father's lightsaber. He killed 30 kids with it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Obi-Wan, was, you can get into that. And, to get off that, final point, I guess here's our bonus point of, yeah, the Jedi aren't perfect, but they're not evil. They aren't hypocrites. They aren't warmongers. Well, okay. Maybe the Army of Light were warmongers. I think everybody can agree on that.
To be fair, that was only a reaction to the gigantic Sith army at the time.
Yeah, and again, that's very true. Like, even the Army of Light, the Jedi at their most militant, are fighting a defensive war against the Sith. The Sith were the ones who reemerged, attacked the Republic, and then you have the new Sith Wars, which last for 1,000 years. So...
When was that?
after Darth Ruin comes back and reestablishes the Sith, it's not like 1,000 years of constant war, but like the Army of Light versus the Brotherhood of Darkness is part of the new Sith Wars.
Oh, it was like the tail end of that?
Yeah, it's, well, not the tail end, it's literally the end, but like, no.
Is that SWTOR or what is that?
No, it's basically all stuff from like reference books and stuff. Darth Ruin was a Jedi Master who fell to the dark side, like reestablished the Sith, and basically, you know, went to war against the Republic, because that's what all the cool Sith Lords do.
I can't believe there's a Darth Ruin when Rian Johnson is a thing. Amazing.
But no. But no, like, and anyways, back on the track and back on the Jedi track here, you know, the Jedi are the good guys. You know, George Lucas did not write them to be evil or secretly evil. You know, he wrote them to be flawed. He wrote them to be not perfect.
Yeah, like, what do you think about describing them as corrupt?
I don't even think corrupt would be, because it's not like Yoda was taking bribes, or Mace Windu or the Council were taking bribes from, you know, Republic senators to do what they want.
Right. I think I've read this in a few of the novels where the Jedi Council at the time of the prequels are described as not as lazy, but maybe bloated,
well,
or something like that. Or
again, I don't know where people could say that, because like a bunch of the Council goes off to be generals. And like, yeah, Yoda a lot of the times is just like hanging around on Coruscant, but he's the Grand Master. Like Mace Windu,
right.
he goes out and fights
in charge of the whole war.
Yeah, exactly. And even at the end of it, he goes and fights on Kashyyyk. Like,
yes, indeed.
Like, I mean, you can go all around like the Jedi Council. You know, Yoda, he fights several times. You know, he fights Dooku on the first battle of the Clone Wars.
Right. It's not like they're it's not like the Jedi Council is all just sitting in the council chamber all the time, like just being like, yeah, go off to war and fight other Jedi. We're too corrupt, fat, and lazy to care. But like, no, like, yeah, like a great deal of the council themselves go out on the front lines and fight.
Yeah, like just off the top of my head, obviously Yoda does, Mace does, Ki-Adi-Mundi, he does, and obviously he dies. Like, a lot of them are out there. Like Adi Gallia, she fights. She's killed by Grievous. You know, Obi-Wan, obviously, he very famously like fights. He's one of the High Generals. Oppo Rancisis, he fights and dies in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Like Evan Peel, he fights in the Clone Wars. Like the little short elf dude. Like, you know, it. Like, again, like, the Jedi Council is, like, actively, like, they're not, like, armchair generals. Like, they're out there. Like, they fight. Several of them die. Mace Windu is literally just a simp for the Republic. Like, they aren't corrupt. And, again, like, I've seen people also, in regards to them being corrupt, or in addition to it, rather, people will say they're arrogant. Like, where?
Oh, yeah.
And, again, this is one of the things where people will point to, you know, Mace Windu talking down to Anakin in the council chamber. Again, like I mentioned, you know, Mace isn't doing that to be a jerk. He's doing it because Anakin's acting like a child.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure like Asajj Ventress refers to the Jedi as corrupt and arrogant a few times, but spoiler alert, she's a bad guy.
Yeah, she's not a good guy. She is evil. She has red lightsabers. And, you know, at the same time, like, if a Sith Lord says something, do you really want to be on their side? You know, if you know, Sidious and Dooku are saying that the Jedi Order is, you know, corrupt and arrogant, because in the Jedi path, Sidious, obviously, like, this is all in-universe stuff, but Sidious has, like, little annotations in the Jedi path, and he's like, oh, the Jedi are corrupt and arrogant. No wonder everyone hates them. And it's like, are you really going to take the Emperor of the Galaxies, you know, the evil Emperor, at his word? You know, it's just a little ridiculous. You know, people are coming up with hoops to jump through to say that the Jedi are actually the bad guys, or they're evil, or they're hypocritical, and all that stuff. Like, people are definitely jumping through hoops, and I think it's definitely, you know, I think like 10 years ago, I would say that would be like the counterculture, where, you know, everything has its counterculture. Like in, you know, the 80s, you had all like Gen X, they were all growing up and they were the counterculture to like the 80s. And then grunge became a thing. And then there was an answer for grunge that came out in like the early 2000s. Like everything gets a counterculture, and I think the Jedi being the good guys, which is the objectively correct answer,
Yeah.
is like that's been like the accepted like culture in Star Wars since, you know, since Star Wars, before it even had a title. When it was just Star Wars, it's been the accepted fact, which is true, and George Lucas, the dude who made it, says that the Jedi are the good guys. And as much as I hate giving George Lucas credit, he's right. And it's just like, that's been the accepted culture and the accepted view on Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then I would say in the past like decade or so, it's really started to get traction that, oh, maybe the Jedi aren't actually the good guys. And it's been kind of steamrolling from there. And now I would say it's probably like not 50-50, but it's nearing 50-50, I think, at least just from what I see on like the internet, on like any kind of social thing where people are talking about Jedi. You're going to have tons of people who are like, well, the Jedi are actually evil.
Yeah, the Jedi are cultish kidnappers. But no, if you had said this stuff back in the original trilogy, for one thing, no one would have had any idea what you were talking about. But like if you had said the Jedi were evil back then, people were like, huh? But of course, now people say that, and they can point to the prequels and be like, see, the Jedi are corrupt because of this, and that reason.
Yeah, and I think even before, obviously, like there's been people who said the Jedi are bad guys, and you know there have always been people who identified with the Sith, because, you know, in any kind of thing, well, actually, I think Star Wars might be one of the only ones I can like easily think of where like people identify with the bad guy, or like the Marvel movies where people are like, well, Thanos had a point though. It's like those people are like the same people who would say the Jedi are evil though.
Thanos actually did nothing wrong.
Yeah, the Sith did nothing wrong. The Empire did nothing wrong. It's like, you know, there are always going to be contrarians, because that's what people who think the Jedi are the bad guys are. They're contrarians who think they have galaxy brain.
Yeah, and they just like to hate on the Jedi.
Yeah, and again, it's like one of those things where, like, you know, some people are just always going to be edgelords. And, you know, that's fine. If you want to be an edgy dude, you know, whatever, go for it. I don't care. But don't spread around, like, you know, stuff like this. Because you see it all the time on the internet, you know, oh, Jedi are cultists who kidnap... Jedi are hypocritical cultists who kidnap kids. They mistreated Anakin, genocided the Sith. They tried to take over the Republic, emotionless robots. They're as bad as Palpatine. They used the clones as slaves, and the Jedi embraced being knights. It's like, you're always going to have people like that. And I think a big part of it also could be the popularity of Knights of the Old Republic 2, and to a lesser extent 1, because in Knights of the Old Republic 2, Chris Avellone kind of did set out to, like, paint the Jedi in a less than positive light. And that's fine, because the Jedi of that time period were very flawed. Like, you could say that they allowed Revan to happen. Like, that is a thing. Like, in Knights of the Old Republic, the consequences of the Jedi Civil War, or excuse me, of the Mandalorian War, led to Darth Revan, you know, which led to the first Jedi Purge, which happens in KOTOR, which led to all that bad stuff. And, you know, Chris Avellone, when he was writing KOTOR 2, like, yeah, like, he was trying to do that. And since Knights of the Old Republic 2 is commonly, it's very, I think justly so, held up to be one of the best Star Wars video games, like, yeah, people are going to take that and run with it, but you also have to look at it from the point of view of Kreia / Darth Kreia, the main antagonist of that game, is biased against the Jedi. And so all the things that she says are just as biased as the Jedi saying they're the good guys in universe. So, you know, at the end of the day, more or less, our argument, it's not more or less, it is right. Like, the Jedi are the good guys of Star Wars. Like, if you need any further evidence, rewatch the movies without your ridiculous anti-Jedi goggles on. And look at anything George Lucas says. Look at anything.
It's probably going to be tough because I'm sure they're so used to implementing the headcanon like during the movie that's probably just super hard to get that out.
Oh, I could definitely see that 100%, but it's just like, I don't know. So, like, if you think the Jedi are the bad guys, like, you know, all I can say is rewatch the movie until you realize that they're not, because I don't think I could ever watch Star Wars and think the Jedi are the bad guys unless I'm going into it wanting to believe they're the bad guys.
Well, it's not thinking the Jedi are the bad guys. It's always specifically targeted at the prequel era Jedi, like the Jedi Council, and just the Jedi of that era in general, you know, are corrupt and, you know, arrogant. They're kid kidnappers and all the kid kidnappers. They're kidnappers and blah blah blah. Like, no.
Yeah, it's just wrong. And I mean, do you have any other points to add? Because I think now we're just kind of, you know, we just keep kind of just dumping on those guys, and I think
I think I had something else to say. I guess your criticism of the Jedi depends on the era, right? Because the Jedi, they change a lot. You know, they change all throughout the timeline of Star Wars.
Yeah, and I think that is a very good point. That, like, yeah, you know, definitely the Jedi from like the Mandalorian Wars and like that kind of era. Yeah, I think they are a bit easier to criticize and all that compared to the prequel Jedi, which, yeah, they do some less than smart stuff. Like, they just immediately trust this clone army that shows up and all that stuff. But, like, I definitely think you're right, and you almost have to, like, again, it should kind of be a case-by-case basis, but even then, the Jedi aren't, like I've said, the Jedi aren't staying out of the Mandalorian Wars because they want the Republic to fall. They're doing it to, like, examine the situation.
Yeah, and they're worried about turning into, you know, warmongers and, you know, warriors and stuff like that. Being more warlike is what they're worried about, basically. And that in turn turning them to the dark side.
Yeah, because, like, and I know this is highly circumstantial because it's dialogue from Knights of the Old Republic 2, which is, again, it's obviously a game that you can, like, choose your own dialogue. But there is dialogue where you, as the player character, can be like, yeah, I loved fighting the Mandalorians because I loved, like, you know, feeling the rush of light, or the rush as, you know, the Mandalorians were cut down, or I joined because I wanted to kill Mandalorians and all that. Like, those are straight up options, and they're put in there. And there were definitely Jedi who fought in the Mandalorian Wars who were like, oh yeah, I just want to kill. And
yeah, that's the whole point of this, that kind of examination. You know, they join the war, and, like, not all Jedi are always good all the time, you know.
Yeah, and then if they're let loose to lead troops in a battle, and I think Atris says it, and it's I don't remember the exact quote, but it's akin to, like, you wanted to answer violence with violence, which obviously isn't the Jedi way. And, like, if you if you listen to the dialogue in Knights of the Old Republic 2, which, again, like I've mentioned, is it's very critical of the Jedi, like, they describe how Revan would, like, straight up sacrifice systems and troops in order to, like, win the war. So, like, Revan was not a good guy. Revan and the Jedi that followed him weren't necessarily the good guys. Like, yeah, they saved the Republic, but countless, you know, thousands, millions, billions, I'm not exactly sure of the Mandalorian War's death toll, but, like, those people died.
Right.
And then
by getting involved in the war, they lost their way. Now, I wouldn't put that same criticism onto the Jedi of the prequel era.
Yeah, exactly, because they fought in a war that they did not choose. Where, like, Revan chose to go to war, the prequel era Jedi were, like, they were forced into it.
Yeah, they were very much on the defense in that regard. They weren't like, you know, they weren't like frothing at the, chomping at the bit trying to, get to war like Revan and his Jedi were for the Mandalorian War.
Yeah, well, except maybe Anakin.
Oh, well.
Well, Anakin,
Yeah, I mean,
Anakin definitely like relished like the combat of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure it didn't help him. I'm sure it didn't help his turn to the dark side at all. It probably helped turn him to the dark side easier by having him be involved in this super long and intense war.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like, it definitely didn't do him any favors, just like it didn't do Revan any favors to go to war, because ultimately it cost him his soul. And the same thing with Anakin. Like, all his actions in the war, like, led him to where he was. And again, to get back to the Jedi are emotionless, his emotions, just like Revan's emotions, led him down that dark path. Because
Yep. Nobody else slaughtered those Tuskens for Anakin. He did it.
yeah, and again, that's a very good point to bring up, because people love to bring up, like, oh, it's Jedi's fault that Anakin fell. It's like, no, it's not, because Anakin was he wasn't a static he wasn't written to be a static character. Like, he made his own choices. The Jedi didn't tell him to kill those Tuskens. And obviously, the Force Ghost Qui-Gon voice is like, Anakin, stop that. And it's just ridiculous to think that the Jedi drove Anakin to do that or anything. Obviously, we have a whole video on Anakin's fall to the dark side and how the Jedi were not involved in that.
Yeah.
And all that. So, like, again, it's just a ridiculous point. And I mean, that's about all I have to say on the subject. If you have any more to add, feel free.
Nope, I am fresh out of comments.
All right, so there we go, guys. That is the top 10, plus some kind of just extra discussion that we got to have on why the Jedi aren't bad guys. They're not secretly evil. They're not a cult, and all that stuff. Like, we went through it. And so if you can, obviously, if you think the Jedi are evil, if you think the Jedi are the bad guys, leave a comment and like try and tell us why. Like, obviously, we're not trying to call you. Well, I guess it kind of is a call out, but like, we're not trying to like belittle you for your thinking or anything. It's just like, we think you're wrong. The creator of the series says you're wrong. So it would just be very interesting to see why you think the Jedi are evil. So like, obviously, leave a comment, and we would love to have that discussion with you.
Kate, what are you saying? They didn't make it past the first 5 minutes of the video.
That's very true. Okay, if you like the theory that the Jedi are the bad guys, the Jedi are evil, and you sat through this whole video, like, massive props to you, because we just, basically completely, kind of upended your entire arguments that the Jedi are evil. And again, like, don't put words into our mouths, because we've said it a couple times that the Jedi are not perfect. But they are far, far, far from these evil, hypocritical kidnappers that you think they are. So with that and that little statement there.
One last thing.
Oh, yeah. And another thing.
Well, you can examine and criticize the Jedi without calling them evil. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, very, very good point. So with that final statement, if you've been enjoying the content that you've been seeing on Legends Library, if you'd like to see more, obviously check out our previous videos. We have videos on Anakin's fall. We have some other opinion pieces and stuff talking about our Star Wars hot takes.
If you are a fan of the Clone Wars TV show, I'm sure you will love them all.
Yeah, exactly. And with that, and then if you like this content you're seeing, subscribe to the channel to see more, and drop the video a like, because we're trying to grow the channel, and all that helps us in the algorithm. But with that little statement there at the end to finally close it off, this is Cade from the Legends Library signing off.
And this is Keith signing off.